Disclaimer, Mrs. Walker is not the best reader, so if I mess up a little, I'm sorry about that. Also, after listening to these, I realized I say a lot, so yeah. How to do an article of the week assignment. This is the junk food article of the week. Okay, so if you have several missing assignments as far as articles of the week, rather than trying to search through what days they were, you can either just go to your grades or you can click on modules and then go to, I'm going to minimize that. Oh, let's see, sorry. Articles of the week right here. We're going to click on the one we're going to, which is going to be junk food. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to click download. Okay. Once you've downloaded it, it's going to pop up. You're going to click open file. Sorry, that pulled up. There we go. Okay, enable editing. Okay, so we are going to actually, this is junk food Teen Brains 1, and we are going to click close. Okay, because it's saved in there. So if you go to this file and you find this, okay, we're going to click on open. Oh, I apologize. Go back in here and go to here. You're going to click on it, hold it down, and drag it over to One Rich District, okay? Now that we've done that, click on that. Junk food, number 1 right here, so we have it. Let's click on it, hold it up. I'm going to go all the way up here, drag it, and put it in Language Arts, okay? Now that it's in Language Arts, we're going to click it. We're going to use the 1 because that's, and then we need a folder. Apparently I don't have one. It says article. I just do article of the week, AFW. Okay, so that's my folder for the articles of the week. And I'm going to click on this and bring it up here and put it in there. Okay, that way I have all my articles of the week in my article of the week folder. That way, if I go out of here, click on my folders, click on my OneDrive, and I go to Language Arts right here, go to Articles of the Week. I know exactly where it is every time, okay? It is saved in my OneDrive, Language Arts, Articles of the Week. Okay, you guys, I'm hoping that this helps you a little bit with the article of the week. I'm going to help you go through this one and see if it helps at all. Okay, so we are going to start off by reading the article. As you go through the slides, I'm going to help you read. And when I tell you to, over on the right-hand side, you're going to comment. All I want you to do right now is just put your comment, okay? So for like the first 3 things, or the first 3 paragraphs, I think it's crazy that what I put in my belly can affect my brain. But you guys obviously will put whatever you want. But the one thing I don't want you to worry about right now is if it's agree, disagree, important, surprising, or wondering, okay? All I want you to do is when we read the 3 paragraphs and I say comment, just put what was the first thing that you thought about, okay? Then on this one, we actually end up reading 2 paragraphs, and you comment, okay? And all I want you to do is just comment. I wonder what made them decide to do the studies. But you obviously put whatever you want. And then once we're done, we'll go back in and we will add these in a minute, okay? So before we start reading the article of the week, a good idea is to read through the questions that we're going to need to know. So the first 5 questions that we're going to need to know as we're going through is, number 1, to what foods are teens more sensitive? So we got to listen for this question, and then we can highlight it as we go through. Number 2, What 3 problems are caused by a teen's not fully developed brain? Number 3, when does the prefrontal cortex finish developing? Number 4, what part of your brain is fully developed by the time you are a teen? And number 5, what effect does a high-fat diet have on the brain? So as we're reading the article, we want to see if we can answer these questions along the way. That way we don't have to go back and look for them. Okay, the next 2 questions that we have, with these ones, not only are we going to give the answer, but we have to use evidence from the text to support our answer, which means we're going to give our answer in our own words, and then we need to copy and paste from the text. Again, it's a good idea if we're doing this as we're going through. Hopefully, that way we don't have to go back and search for it. So, answer each question in 1 or more complete sentences. So this isn't just like, it did this. Like, it needs to be a complete sentence. All right. Number 6, explain the purpose of dopamine and how it works. Again, it says use evidence from the text to support your answers. So you will write what you believe. You'll explain in your own words the purpose of dopamine. Okay, so just start with what's the purpose of dopamine, and then go back in and write, okay, how dopamine works. Then you need to copy and paste from the article and put it in there. Number 7, what can we learn from the mouse experiment, and how can that apply to you? Again, break it down. What can we learn from this mouse experiment? Okay, write your answer. Then, how can that be applied to you? So how does that work for you? What does that mean for you? So explain your thoughts, and then use evidence from the text. Copy and paste and put that in there. You are what you eat. When people say that, they mean a healthy diet can boost your health. But the opposite is also true. In fact, if you're between the ages of 10 and 19, eating too much junk food can harm your body and your brain. Junk food shapes adolescent brains in ways that impair their ability to think, learn, and remember. It can also make it harder to control impulsive behaviors, says Amy Retchett. It may even up a teen's risk of depression and anxiety, she notes. Retchett is a brain and nutrition specialist at Canada's Western University in London, Ontario. Adolescents are more sensitive than any other group to foods with a lot of processed fat and sugar, she says. She is part of a group of scientists around the world who have been studying why. So now you need to stop, and on your article of the week, over here on this side right here, you need to hit the enter button, come down right here, and you need to comment on something that you learned that explains that you're paying attention to this article right here. So you've gone down 3 paragraphs, and now we're explaining. Okay, so put in your comment. You can pause this or whatever you want to do. So put in your comment of what you believe. Also, if you remember, one of the questions it asked was what foods are teens more sensitive to? I believe that was our first question. Right here in this last paragraph that we read, it said adolescents are more sensitive than any other group or age group to foods with a lot of processed fat and sugar. So that's your question, or that's your answer right there. Is that teens are more sensitive to foods with a lot of processed fat and sugar. So if you notice how we read the question as we're going through, we were able to answer the question without having to go back. She and 2 other researchers at Western recently reviewed more than 100 studies, including their own, about how poor food choices can impact adolescent brains. They described what they learned in the May issue of the Lancet Child and Adolescent Health. One problem: adolescent brains are not yet fully formed, and that actually leads to 3 problems in one, says Rutsched. First, adolescent brains are still developing the ability to assess risk and control actions. Second, teen brains get more pleasure than adult brains do from rewarding behaviors such as eating junk food. Third, adolescent brains can be more easily influenced by their environment, and this can include any stress you're feeling, any isolation, or any drugs that you may be taking. It can also be influenced by diet. Together, these all can combine to make junk food both hard to resist and extra bad for teen health. Okay, first things first. Now that we've read those, come over to this area right here and make your comment about the paragraphs we just read, something that you learned in those paragraphs. Also, if you remember, down in our questions, we had one that said, what 3 problems are caused by a teen's not fully developed brain? If you come back up to the second paragraph, it says one problem is that adolescent brains are not fully yet fully formed. And that actually leads to 3 problems in one. So we're trying to find out what the 3 problems in one are. First, it says they're still developing the ability to assess risk and control actions. Second, teens' brains get more pleasure than adults' brains do from rewarding behaviors such as eating junk food. Third, adolescent brains can be more easily influenced by their environment, and this can include any stress you're feeling, any isolation, any drugs you may be taking. So, you've got your first, second, and third. So those are 3 problems that it causes. So in your own words, write down what your first would be, then in your second, and then your third. Brains under construction. Let's break that down, starting with preteen and teen behaviors. The brain region that tells us we shouldn't eat chips all the time and helps us resist the urge, is the last to mature, called the prefrontal cortex. This region doesn't fully develop until we are in our early 20s. Brain imaging studies show that the prefrontal cortex turns on when we weigh risks and make decisions about how to act. The prefrontal cortex region of the brain, shown here in green, isn't fully matured until we are in our 20s. Okay, so that is down 3 paragraphs. 1, 2, 3, even though I think this is part of that, but that's fine. So go over here to the right, make sure to use your enter button, come all the way down, and make a comment about something you've learned in that paragraph. Okay, also, question number 3 says, when does the prefrontal cortex finish developing? If we go back up, it says, the prefrontal cortex, this region, doesn't fully develop until we are in our early 20s. There's your answer. Go put it in. Most of our complex brain functions happen in the prefrontal cortex, says Rutsched. This includes complex math and reading, but she notes that it also includes how to assess risky behavior. At the same time, teen brains get more buzz from rewards. Unlike the prefrontal cortex, the parts of the brain that make us feel good when we do something pleasurable, like eating tasty food or being with friends, are fully developed by the teen years. In fact, these regions are even more sensitive when we are young. That's because of a natural chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is sometimes called the feel-good chemical, and it lifts our mood when we experience something rewarding, and it is especially active in adolescent brains. So that's our 3 paragraphs. Go over to the right over here. Scroll down a little bit, just go right here and make your comment. Okay, remember our question number 4 said, what part of your brain is fully developed by the time you're a teen? So if you go back to what we just read, it said that unlike the prefrontal cortex, so that one is not, the parts of the brain that make us feel good when we do something pleasurable are fully developed by the teen years. So when it asks what part of the brain is fully developed in the teen years, it is the parts of the brain that make you feel good when you do something pleasurable. Okay, so we just talked about dopamine. Okay, so as a neurotransmitter, so it's saying dopamine is a neurotransmitter. Okay, so as a neurotransmitter, it zips across the space between brain cells. Once it arrives at a new cell, dopamine binds to the docking stations there. These molecules are known as receptors. When dopamine docks, those receptors relay the feel-good signal from the last cell to the new one. And that tells the brain that whatever it just experienced is worth getting more of. Adolescents have more dopamine receptors in the brain than do adults. So they get more good vibes from anything they find enjoyable. The teen brain, thus, has 2 strikes against it when it comes to resisting junk food. It has a heightened drive for rewards and reduced self-regulation, says Ratchet. That's a big problem for adolescents because of the 3rd issue. Growing brains can be more easily changed by eating high-fat, high-sugar foods. That's what Ratchet and her team discovered in their studies of teenage mice. Okay, first things first, over here, come down right here and make a comment about what we just read. Next thing, question 5 says, what effect does a high-fat diet have on the brain? If you go back up to what the last one we read, it said, growing brains can be more easily changed by eating high-fat, high-sugar foods. So what effect does it have? It makes the brains can be more easily changed. Okay, the next question we had was, explain the purpose of dopamine and how it works. If we go back up, it said, dopamine is sometimes called the feel-good chemical, and it lifts our mood when we experience something rewarding. So, when it asks, what's the purpose of dopamine? It is a chemical that lifts our mood when we experience something rewarding. Okay, it also asks how it works. So in this whole paragraph right here, it really tells you how it works. So read this paragraph again, and it's basically saying that it zips across space between your brain cells. It goes from new cell, or once it arrives at a new cell, it binds to the docking stations there. the receptors, gives you that feel-good signal. So in your own words, you need to write how it works. Then, on that particular question, it said you needed to give evidence. So that's where, this is our evidence right here. So we can literally just copy and paste this right here. And that gives us part of our evidence. And then copy and paste this. This gives us the evidence of how it works. Mouse brains on fat and sugar. Since mouse brains develop very much like our own, they can be used to understand how what we eat affects the human brain. In 2017, Ratchet was part of a team that fed adolescent mice high-fat foods to see how it affects their brains. One group of mice ate a diet in which 63% of their calories came from fat. That's a lot of fat. It would be like eating bacon cheeseburgers and ice cream every day. A second group ate a healthy diet. As expected, mice eating high-fat foods gained weight and put on body fat. But that's not all. These mice also performed worse on memory tests than did mice eating a normal diet. Okay, go ahead, make your comment right here about something you've learned. The researchers tested the mice for what's known as working memory. It's the type that allows us to hold on to information long enough to use it. For example, working memory helps you remember which 5 things you need to buy at the store, or what time you said you'd meet your friends. It's also important for reasoning and decision making, and it involves the prefrontal cortex. That's the same brain area that helps make decisions. Ratchet and her team used 2 different tests to gauge this working memory. In the first test, they put the animals in a Y-shaped maze. Each mouse started in the center of the Y shape. From there, they were free to explore 2 of the 3 arms of the maze. The third arm was blocked off. Then the researchers opened up the maze's third arm. Mice will naturally explore their environment and are drawn to new things. Given the chance, they should prefer to visit a new arm of the maze rather than the one they've already explored, or they would if they could remember which arm of the maze they had already visited. Okay, go ahead and over in here, put a comment for those 3. Mice eating a healthy diet behaved as expected. They chose to explore the new arm of the maze. But those eating a high-fat diet did not prefer any one arm. The fact that they explored all 3 at random seemed to show they could not remember which parts of the maze they had seen already. The second test used a maze set up in a tank of murky water. The end of the maze is a platform just under the water's surface. To get out of the water, a mouse must navigate to the platform by remembering landmarks. The mice are scooped up to avoid drowning if they can't find their way. Mice fed a healthy diet performed much better than did those eating high-fat chow. The fatter mice were just as good at swimming, they just did not find their way to the platform. This suggests they could not remember the landmarks. Okay, go ahead and comment right here about what we just read. Then the researchers looked at the animals' brains. Here they found important differences in renin, a chemical that helps brain cells chat with each other. Mice on high-fat chow had roughly 35% less renin in their prefrontal cortex compared to mice on a healthy diet. The high-fat diet may have made the prefrontal cortex in these mice work less effectively. People with brain disease, such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, often have lower levels of renin too, says Recha. We can't blame that on junk food in adolescence, she said, but it may be a contributing factor to risk of disease. Okay, go ahead and comment on the last two paragraphs that we read. Okay, so the last question says, what can we learn from the mouse experiment and how can that apply to you? So let's just start with what can we learn from the mouse experiment? So in the mouse experiment, they gave one group fatty foods with lots of fat, and the other group they gave healthy food. So from what you remember of what we read, what can you learn? Some of the stuff said that the ones that ate the fatty food, they had a hard time getting through the Y-shaped maze. They couldn't remember. Says they couldn't remember which arms of the maze they had visited, and mice eating healthy diets behaved as they had expected. So some stuff that we can learn from that would possibly be that if you eat healthier food, that your brain is going to be better. So as far as the question of what can we learn from that, put what you think we can learn from that. And then also, how can that be applied to you? Pretty much the same as the mice, I would assume, is that if you eat a lot of junk food, that you probably may struggle in school a little bit more, or just whatever you think, right? Whatever you think of how it can be applied to you. So you're just going to write those two sentences of what you can learn and how it can be applied to you. Then you actually need to come up to the section of the mouse experience, or experiment, sorry. Mouse brains on fat and sugar, okay? So this whole section, and look in there and find something that goes along with your answers, okay? So as far as mice eating high-fat foods, gained weight, stuff like that. So copy and paste whatever statements in this section that will match with your answers as your evidence. Copy and paste them and put them in with that question. Okay, and then you are done. One of the things that it tells you that you're supposed to do that I've noticed that several of you don't, and some of you say, oh, well, Ms. Brown still gives me the score, so I don't have to do it. But on step 2 right here, it says number the paragraphs. So you really need to do it, even if Ms. Brown hasn't made you in the past. So the easiest way to do this is to just go to the very first paragraph, and then you're going to click 1, okay? Then you go down with your arrow button, like I think that's the easiest way, and you put 2. You could also go down with your mouse, and put 3, but sometimes that gets things messed up. So you're just going to keep going. We'll do 4. Oh, sorry. It's a little bit different on this screen. 4, 5. Let's go down. But also make sure. So see how this is number 5 right here? There's a gap in here, so that's where you go 4 and 5, right? But right here, there's not a gap. It's still, this paragraph right here is still part of this paragraph right here. So you don't put 4 and then 6, 5 and then 6 right here. 6 is this one right here, okay? So we have to keep going down. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Remember, so see how this sentence doesn't have a period right here? It means that this part right here is part of 11. So then we're going to click on 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Be careful, because if you go like this and you highlight this or something, and then you go 18, it's obviously going to cut it off. So that's where you need to hit the back button. Just go over and do 18. So just be careful when you're doing that. You don't have to do a period. You don't have to do a space. Nothing. Okay, on this one right here. So see how this is 18? There's a period right there. There's somewhat of a gap right there. But there's 18. So that means that this indeed is 19. Okay, 19. And oh, see, if I hit 20 right here, oh my goodness, that just took away that whole paragraph, or that whole sentence. So we're going to click back, and we're going to do 20. So I know that's why some people don't like to do it, is because they're like, oh, I accidentally took away the whole paragraph. So that's what the back button is for. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, oops, let's go here, 25. And then look at that. I am done on that. So now everything is numbered, and that took me like maybe 3 minutes to do, okay? But it was a requested thing that they've asked of, okay? Okay, so really quick going back. Okay, so when we went to question 6, okay, so explain the purpose of dopamine and how it works. So I just put in dopamine's a thing in your brain that makes you feel good. Obviously, I put it in my own words. How it works, I put it works by going from one area to the other and turning on receptors that tell your brain you liked whatever you did, okay? So those are in my own words, okay? So when you're doing your thing, and I say copy and paste, so I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to grab the, let's see, dopamine, okay? So I'm going to copy and paste this, maybe. Okay, let's see if I can, I might have to, oh, it's not going to work because of it being in 2 different areas. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go control copy, come down here, boom, 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 boom. Okay, first of all, I'm going to do shift and then put my little marks, quotation marks, okay, feel good, okay, but I need that other part too because it is part of it, but I couldn't get it, okay. It was a feel good chemical, gives you the rewards, okay. Control copy, let's go back down. I'm just going to keep that where that was at. Okay, I'm going to control or shift and put the quotations. Then I also need my evidence for how it works, which would be, I'm just going to do the whole thing underneath that one, okay? So, here's what I'm trying to say to you though. Okay, actually I'm not, let's see. I'm just going to go to that part right there, okay? Control copy. Okay, so we're going to go here. I'm going to do my shift and quotations. I'm going to put in my thing. Oh, pretend like that wasn't here, guys, okay? Just pretend like that 12 wasn't there, because you're supposed to do this as you're going through the article, okay? So, you did that while you were going through the article. Then after we did the article, we went back in and we put that dopamine is, I put my opinion, and then I'm going to put as it says on line, okay, now I'm going to hurry and go back up, okay? What line did I get that off of? Okay, so after the fact, this is after the fact, and we've done our numbering now. Okay, as line 11, okay? And I can look and see that that's line 12, so I know that for going on, okay? So I can put, as it says on line 11, dopamine, okay? And then I can, over here, I can say, it also shows how it works on line 12 when it says, and then it has that comment, okay? So that is showing where you got it, and that's why she's having you put the numbers in, is so that when you put in your evidence, you can tell her what line you got it on, okay? Okay, so last but not least, so when we're doing the comments, as we have gone through the article, we've just written our comments, just the first thing that has come to our head, okay? And, but she wants you to, it says, read the article carefully and make notes in the margin, using these symbols as you read. But if it's hard and you forget the symbols or whatever, we can go in afterwards, because all I want you to do is to just, what's the first thing that came to your head? What did you remember about that art, or that comment, or sorry, about the 3 paragraphs we just read? Some people are so worried about this that they can't even think of what to write. So just write what you're thinking. Then, after you're completely done, then you can go back in and do this if you want. So, like, I went in, and on the first 3, I put, I think it's crazy that what I put in my belly can affect my brain. Okay, so that comment that I just said, I think it's crazy. Well, do I agree with them? I'm not really agreeing because I don't know much about it. I'm not disagreeing. It's not really that, I mean, I guess it's important, but not my comment. But surprising. Okay, I think it's crazy that I could put, I'm surprised. I mean, that's what I could have said, is I'm surprised that what you put in, or what I put in my belly can affect my head. So I'm going to say that that's probably surprised. So we're going to go right in front of it, and all we're going to do is we're going to hit the surprise thing, okay? So then, as I go down to the next comment that I made, okay, the next comment I made was about the next 3, and I put, I wonder what made them decide to do all those studies. So I wonder what made them decide to do all those studies. So if I come back up here and agree, disagree, important, surprise, wondering. I wonder. Well, I put I wonder, so I know I'm asking a question. So I'm just going to put that down here. I'm going to come down, and I'm going to go to the beginning of it, and I am going to put a question mark, that's surprise. So then you can go through and do all the rest of your comments and add those in there, okay? Okay, so we have read the article. We've commented on the article, okay? We've commented and put our notes. We've wrote the number, or we've numbered our paragraphs. We've gone back in and we've done our agree or disagree. It says step 4 is a final quick skim, noting anything you may have missed during the first 2 reads. So, yes, she's technically saying that you need to read this 3 times, because she's having you read the article. Then you're going through, and as you're numbering the paragraphs, she wants you to read it again. And as you do the note thing, you're reading it again. Basically, we've gone back and forth, so we haven't technically read it 3 times each, but you get the idea. So your final quick skim, you're just going through, making sure you have your numbers here, okay? Make sure that you have a comment every 3, okay? So it's either every 3 or between 2 and 3, okay? So if you notice, like on this one, we did every 3. This one right here, there was 1, 2. We ended up doing the 1 with the 2 because there was a new section coming up, so we just hurry and did it. But as you keep going, you're just going to make sure that you did that, okay? Then, as you keep going, I didn't put comments on all that whole thing, but you guys will have it there, okay? Make sure that you have answered every question, okay, in our question section. Then also, on this one, you're going to make sure that you have your own words. Again, when I was going through this and telling you what I wrote, make sure that you write it in your own words and you're not writing down what Miss Walker wrote, please. So I've got it in my own words. Explain the purpose. I explained it. Then it says use evidence. This part right here is me using evidence. So I have both sections, this and this, okay? So make sure that you have that on everything, okay? Wouldn't hurt to put in your name. This is Shelley Walker, okay? And your class period. I just happen to be in there. I believe it is 4th hour, okay? So throw that in there. Then it's complete, guys. Okay, make sure that once you're done with this, that you've saved it and you get it submitted.